Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Top of the day, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this episode of The Lifeline with your host, life strategist, and entrepreneur, Bo Powell, social media influencer and owner of the For Real brand, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, leadership consultant and mental health advocate, Barry J. Elliott. You can visit us at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and now on YouTube. Today, we have two special guests. We have husband, father, youth pastor, owner of the Four Hearts Events, and Regional Operations Manager, Vice President at Bank of America, Anthony Downing. And we also have husband, father, ordained elder, serial entrepreneur, realtor, and owner of Dreams Works Realty, owner of Fish for Real Charter Boat Service, Jamiyo Aaron. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Doing well. Good to be here.
Good to have you, man. We appreciate you joining. This is our topic today is a touchy one. We're going to get
no pun intended, huh?
No pun. Right. So it's going to get kind of gritty. We can handle it. We can handle it. So we're going to talk a lot about start our conversation about pornography. That's a real problem in our culture. So I'm gonna ask each of you, and I'll share my story, of course. How old were you when you were first exposed to pornography?
Well, I can go, no problem at all. So my introduction to pornography was around 12 or 13 years old. I'll never forget the day. It was one of those rare days and rare occasions. I'm from a small town in Northeast North Carolina. And so it was one of those rare days, rare occasions where my dad was like, yo, I'm gonna take you to the barbershop. I'm gonna drop you off. I gotta run out. And then I'll be back to get you. Cool. I knew everybody in the town. Everybody knew my dad. So it wasn't no problem safety wise. But the boys from the block was in there talking that day. And on that day in there talking, they talked about porno and they talked about masturbation. And it was in jest, right? But to a 12, 13-year-old Anthony, it was like, wait a minute, I haven't been introduced to this. Now I'm curious. So that was my initial, introduction to quote unquote pornography and that world.
Okay. Mio?
I can't really pinpoint the age. I mean, where I grew up, I mean, you get exposed to sex at a very early age growing up in the inner city. Not really thinking that it was much wrong with it, so to speak. But I can remember for sure that I found out that I was able to during the time when HBO started a series called Real Sex.
Real Sex, yeah. I remember.
And I think it was the first episode, first season. That night, I found out I was a man, and then and it was, there's that first experience that I can truly kind of pinpoint and remember that, yeah, this is something interesting.
Yeah, and Real Sex was really soft porn. They
Absolutely.
They pitched it as a documentary per se, but it was really soft porn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bo, P, which one of y'all won?
Okay, man. Mine is very similar. I can't necessarily say what age, but it was during my adolescent years. And it was through TV. Cinemax back in the day.
Yeah, Cinemax is a beast.
After a certain time, it clicked over. And
yes, sir.
And I was supposed to be in the bed, but I was up when I wasn't supposed to, and a show came on, and you start to realize, like you said, you got stuff that happens in your body that, yeah. So that was it. It was at that age that I first noticed that there was another world out there that I hadn't been exposed to just yet.
Got you.
Yeah.
I don't strategically remember per se. Had to be teenage years. I just know it was with my cousins. And I think one of my cousins had one of those magazines, and the magazine opened and you opened and you opened, and I was like, whoa. And from there, just started to dibble and dabble into other forms, visualizations of it. And then, like the two brothers said, real sex and Cinemax and those different type of movies. It's just kind of started that way.
Okay.
That was the introduction to it. Yeah.
I believe I was between 10 and 12 when I got introduced to porn. And I caught two female relatives watching porn. And it left an imprint in my mind that I never forgot. And it created a binge.
Mhm.
I mean, that went on for years. And so
Mhm.
that was really my introduction. And that was back in the VHS days. And so as we
Mhm.
dive to the conversation, we'll talk a little bit more. But that
Barry,
was my
Barry, Barry, some of us are a little bit younger. Some of our listeners may be a little bit younger. Can you explain VHS, please?
What is that? What is a VHS?
What is a
So
VHS?
a VHS for our viewers and listeners, and for the record, viewers and listeners, I am of the host. I am the youngest, so don't let them fool you. But a VHS is a cartridge that went inside a what we call a VCR. Instead of DVDs or now Blu-rays, they were these large cartridges that we put in the machines, and they showed you some things.
Movies.
In this
Yeah.
case, movies, yeah, movies.
Yeah.
But in this
Movies.
case, it showed us movies and a whole lot more. And
Yeah.
what I saw, it left an imprint on my mind that, yeah, to this day I still remember. Quite honestly, I
Right.
manage it better, but I still remember. I got saved, but my memory is still here. My memory is still
Yeah.
intact, right? So we'll leave that there. We'll leave that there.
I
So
don't do
that kind of, streamline into my next question is, how did your encounter with porn alter your life? And you said you went on a binge, so it definitely made an impact on you, Barry.
Yeah.
I think based upon the cousins and the other homeboys, it was almost a rite of passage. It was almost like it was the first introduction to, before you did anything for real. Think it was, I don't want to say mandatory, but based upon my homeboys and cousins, like everyone was exposed to it. So even though we knew it was wrong, it was like it was a part of it. And it did take an effect, because after that, you start, yeah, I like you, but dang, I saw something.
it.
Might want to try with you. Before it was just, I thought he was cute and attractive. And those, I think the aspect of looking at that kind of sparked other interests towards the opposite sex.
So this is something I've talked about in therapy, but I don't think I've ever shared this with Jamiyo. And Jamiyo is, but when I was from the time I was 6 to 10 years old, I was molested by an older girl. So I'd already been introduced to sex. So the pornography just exacerbated it. So
Yeah.
I became a young addict to the point. So when I was young, I could draw. So as I grew older, people know me as a scholar, but as a young man, I was a creative. And one of the things I was able to do is I was able to draw. And in seventh grade, I literally drew my own porn magazine. So
Wow.
I
Wow.
was
You
Wow.
I
serious
was
about yours, bro?
oh yeah,
Yeah,
it was
you
it
took
was
it
it
to
was it
another
was
level.
serious. It was serious. When I was in sixth grade, my mother found, I think it was a Penthouse magazine. Y'all remember Penthouse?
Yeah, man, Penthouse.
Um, it was bad. It really altered my life, and even though I got saved really young, it snatched my innocence between the molestation and then
Oh
the
yeah.
pornography. My innocence was cooked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it changed my view of the world, the view of women. And one of the things that I talked about in therapy, my therapist said I wanted to punch him in his mouth, but he said that part of your problem is you objectified women.
Yeah.
That
Which all
traces
men
back to
did, I
part,
think.
but
Yeah.
but it traces back to pornography.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You see them as objects rather than people.
Objects. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think porn sometimes creates unrealistic expectations for men within their own sexual life. be it with
Yeah.
their wife or their girlfriend. You want 2 and 3. You want to do this, and you're like, "What are you doing?" I seen, you're trying to do all these different positions and try different things. So sometimes it creates an urge that can't be satisfied.
And I don't think I've ever shared this, but a preacher, his wife was looking for a partner. And so because he trusted me, this was in the last 5 or 6 years, he asked me would I come and be a part of
Oh
a
wow.
menage a trois. Of course, I
What?
said no.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
real in these streets.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
I was just looking at some stats, and they said 54% of Christians. We talked about that definition. Watch pornography, and 75% of Christian men watch pornography. 40% of Christian women watch pornography, and 20% of Christians view pornography at least once a week.
Mm.
Believe it.
If you have a social media account, um,
Oh yeah, it's
and I mean it's soft porn just scrolling through your news. I mean, your timeline now. I
yeah,
mean, I joke about it often that I've got my friends on Facebook and Instagram go from pastor to prostitute and everything in all between. So I might open my phone sometimes and who knows who's posted what. Good God.
right, right, right.
So I
Yeah,
mean, it's not necessarily porn, but the oversexed portion of social media is hard to get away from unless you extremely scrub your social medias.
yeah. More and more women are getting on and just um, twerking, blurring the lines between I'm working out, but at the same time, I'm giving you shots, to try to consume or get, people to show their interest. Yeah, it's a lot of it. I mean, I was looking at another stat. They said in 2024, the global industry made $58 billion
Hmm.
in one year.
Wow.
Sex sells.
Good
That
God.
that's a lot of money.
I'll take
That's
the
a
tithe.
Yeah, they say 4% of
It's-
the internet is pornography.
Hmm.
Four
wow.
percent of it is pornography. And I have sons, and at one point I was really scrubbing not really scrubbing, but watching what they were looking at. 10, 12, 13, and then life got busy, 14, 15, 17, now they're 18, 20. Um, and now it's hard to get the phone.
Right. And they're in college. The oldest one's in college.
Yeah, both of them in college,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so.
yeah. So I'm curious to hear from Anthony and Jamiyo. First of all, Anthony, um, how did how did the barbershop change your life?
So what it did, right, it opened up this Pandora's box of curiosity. That was the biggest thing, right? And so to the point you guys were making about then the TV and the HBO and the Skinamax, as they called it back
The
in the day, right?
Skinamax.
Hmm.
Like so those things, then I would find myself going to look for those things. But then I think it hit its top for me when I went to college. I played football in college, and I'll never forget this day either. So one of my teammates stayed right next door to me. He had a box, like one of those moving boxes that you put stuff in when you're moving. He had a box full. He's like 2 years older than me. He had a box full of porn, and so
Wow.
every Friday night, this is not a lie. Every Friday night, he would take the box and set it outside of his door, and like, yo, it's Friday night or Saturday night after the game. It's Saturday night. Know y'all about to get right with your girls, drink, whatever. Yo, like, take what you need, just make sure you bring it back. And so it became an access thing at that point, right? It was
Wow.
like,
Wow.
and it was VHS, like you talked about, but it was easily accessed, and like you would take it, watch, go through, pick out what you want for the night, watch it with your girl, or watch it by yourself. And so it became this thing where it was no longer a shame on it, right? Because I was with all my peers and everybody was doing it.
Mhm.
And so the sensitivity level that I had before I got to college was now gone. So it wasn't even a shame on it. And so I think that was one thing that I had to really fight through and pray through, especially as I was beginning to work towards marriage and all of those things. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but that's kind of how that thing can roll downhill on you and start to affect you.
Yeah, yeah. When it's presented like that, it's like I said, when I was first introduced, it was like a rite of passage. And then
Hmm.
when everybody's around you doing it, you don't feel as bad or as dirty.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I co-sign everything Anthony said. I mean, honestly, I mean, it just opened the box. I mean, for me, it was the segue to what I would call my sex addiction from the age of 16 to about 13 years ago. I mean, it honestly was like an instructional video. And that's all it was. It was instruction. Taught me how as a youngin, I guess, or I thought it was, how to do. And then, it caused me to honestly look at women from that age of 16 really until 13 so years ago, um, as just the object of that and nothing more. Could really never have really serious relationships because there was only one thing that I was out to do, and that was, to conquer, you
Wow.
know, and that
Wow.
and then the pornography in the meantime was when I couldn't get that, then I can have that because there was an addiction there. So if I wasn't getting, if the ends to the means wasn't being met in the physical sense with the woman, then I would use the pornography to kind of take up the slack of that. So
Yeah.
I mean, pornography and my sex life became one and then the same, I guess, for all those years of my life.
Professor Bull.
Um, I was just thinking, I don't know if it was necessarily, porn or anything for me. I think it was just the influence of other men
Mm.
um, around me. I never really got caught up into porn per se. It's not like that. I didn't watch it from time to time or just see it. I mean, when you're in that type of environment, you're going to see it. But I think it was just, getting around other men, like Lynchburg talked about, a rite of passage. Being able to sleep with multiple women and stuff like that. And I think that was more impactful for me than anything. Um, the times I did look at porn, it was kind of like to try to learn something to figure it out. Because growing up Kojic, I was in the house all the time. It was house at church. You know what I'm saying? And the only reason we had Cinemax or Skinemax is because my sister was at the house. She had stayed with us for a little time or something like that. Or maybe I was at her house. I don't remember. And she had a subscription to it. Like my mom didn't have it. So I didn't really have that type of access. And being the only child, and of my mother, I didn't get a lot of overexposure, but my friends and other men, or maybe listening to music, about being able to have multiple women. I think that's where my objectification of women came from. The way the hip hop culture evolved, and being injected into that particular mentality, or being around that particular element. That's what impacted me more than anything than porn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think
And
that
so,
that's a strong message, Bo, because I kind of concur with that. Just that mindset of devour and conquer, just to devour and conquer and try to meet or sleep with as many people as you can. And that's not a healthy aspect, but it was just what the fellas did, especially
mhm.
as Ant said, when you play football, it's a whole different scenario because you have so much energy, testosterone, and you want to just devour and hit stuff, and it becomes trying to hit something.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you even had sex by a certain age, I mean, you was a square. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Mhm.
In sports, I mean, that's just what it was. So, because I mean, as men, I think we can all agree that we learn from other men. Especially those who we have a high level of respect for. And so if it's all about, if you have main girl, then you got your chick on the side and or whatever the case may be, you tend to adopt those ideologies and you live them out, not really realizing how toxic they are, damaging they are till you start to mature and get older. So, that's it for me. So, I mean, but think about it, just looking back, if we had a time machine, if you can go back to your younger self, guys, and, you know, really speak to yourself, I mean, what would you say to yourself as it relates to porn?
100% for me. And I say this all the time. I wish with everything in me that I would have saved myself for my wife. Because although I appreciate the heck out of her, there's still some lack of appreciation there at times because of the things I did prior to getting with her as it relates to porn, as it relates to other people. All of those things, that's one thing if I could tell my younger self, regardless of the ridicule, regardless of, what, the fellas would think or say, save yourself for your wife. And, I don't tell my young people that just as something to say because it's the right thing to say in church. I tell them that because if you're going to get married one day and you really want to appreciate your spouse the right way, that's one way to start out by doing it. So that's what I would tell my younger self.
It's good.
Mm.
Man, that's a good question. Um, um, man, I tell myself to take your time
Yeah.
because there was such a rush to become grown, and sex was the gateway to being a man. I mean, like you said, brother, I mean, you weren't really a man until you became a man and were able to, profess that to the homies. No matter how much hair you got on your chest, if you ain't crossed that bridge, you're not part of this. You're not part of this group yet. So take your time, young man. I mean, because for me, and I don't think I was ever really addicted to porn. I enjoyed it. Like I said, it was an end to a means for me, but it furthered the way I felt about women. And even though I'm saved and God has forgiven me, there's a lot of women who I know will never forgive me for the way that I treated them.
Wow.
No matter how many times I apologize or how much they've heard I'm a different person. But, I was a womanizer. You were there, you only had one purpose for me, and that really was it. And by any means necessary, so to speak, outside of being illegal and forcing and things like that. But what I mean by any means necessary was, I'm the playboy. I got whatever I got to tell you out of my mouth to get you to that point. I was willing to say it. So I would tell myself, take your time, man. You've got plenty of time for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think my conversation with the younger LSP would be don't even start, honestly, because if you start, it's going to open up a can of worms that you can't physically put back in. I would tell myself to focus on, your academics, your relationship with God, and sports, but don't even start. And I think my introduction was based upon peer pressure, trying to fit in, being
Mhm.
the only boy, four sisters, single mom, going over my cousins. They doing this, they doing that, little hoodish. So let me kind of fit in. So I would tell myself don't even start because as the brother just said, it did open up a can of worms as far as the unnecessary amount of relationships with women to try to satisfy something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
would
would
say,
say,
oh, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead, Barry. No, you
Go.
go ahead, Barry, because
I,
go ahead.
I would say, run, Forrest, run.
Oh,
I would say run, Forrest, run, and I use it in scripture, flee fornication. Because when I was thinking about this conversation, I was thinking about at 10 years old, my favorite movies were Bachelor Party. If you remember Bachelor Party, there was a lot of nudity in Bachelor Party. Revenge of the Nerds. There was a whole lot of nudity in Revenge of the Nerds, and so that seed was planted in me young, and so I would say to myself, run, even from the molestation, because it got to the point where the molestation became normal for me, and I began to enjoy it, and so I began to expect that from other older women. So I would say, run, Forrest, run. That's what I would
Yeah,
say, and
definitely.
talk to somebody, because back then, secrets, family, just secrets, period, in the black community was normal. So I just kind of wish that I would have talked to somebody back then.
Right.
Yeah.
that's a really good point, man. Talking to someone. It's a really good question. I think what I would say to my younger self would just my conversation would be patterned around just honor. honoring who you are,
Mm.
and just even honoring your seed. Um, because for a lot of guys, you end up getting into situations to where you have kids before it was time, or you have kids and you create broken homes. But just the idea of honor and just how valuable you are, that, we often have that conversation about women valuing your body, but it's just as important for men.
For sure.
I think, a lot of times we don't even talk about Proverbs 31, that's really a conversation between a mom and her son.
My son.
And she's telling him early on, it says, hey, don't give all your strength to women,
Yeah.
and so when you think about, you know, sex and, releasing, that's just seed that you're
Yeah.
just throwing away. That's energy that's being given out. So my conversation would be centered around that, just what it means to be a man of honor, of discipline and stuff like that. I think that will be what my conversation would be centered around to my younger self.
It's good.
You know what I
Good.
mean? So, but man, this is a great conversation. But unfortunately, we got to bring it to a close. But before we do that, one of the things we love to allow our guests to do is to really showcase the things you have going on in your life, whether it's business, books or whatever the case may be. So, we'll start with Anthony and then you, Jamiyo. Tell us about. Believe you have a 4 events you have, and then Jamiyo, your businesses. Tell people about what you got going on, how they can access you, how they can find you on social media and across the internet.
Yeah, so Four Heart Events is fourheartevents.com, and we do some party stuff. We've done concerts in the city, gospel concerts and things of that nature. The biggest thing for me right now though is really focusing in on my next, and where God is taking me next, and really pushing my wife. So my wife, she is a speech therapist and she is a consultant for families with children with autism. And so that's Four Hearts Connections. And if you out there and you have anybody that you know dealing with any issues as it pertains to children with autism, reach out to Four Hearts Connections. I promise you, you will not be dissatisfied.
And how can they find you guys on social media? Heart Connections on
Four Hearts
Instagram.
Connections, everything. Four Hearts Connections on all platforms. Fourheartconnection.com is the website.
Awesome, awesome. Jamil?
And he forgot to mention he's a pretty dope preacher and teacher as well, man. I mean,
Come on now.
if that's my brother. If you need someone to come speak to your young men's conference or something like that, Anthony's your man.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I'm like my brother said, I'm a serial entrepreneur, which means I kind of put my foot in any barrel that looks like there could be some motion. But right now, I'm truly focused on my real estate business. I'm now a broker in the state of North and South Carolina, so I'm able to assist buyers and sellers, residential and commercial, as well as I have the capacity to take on other realtors who want to join my brokerage as well. So I'm really focusing on that, as well as I am now a licensed captain for fishing. So I do own a charter boat company that's located in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. For those who don't know that area, it's a little suburb town or a part of Myrtle Beach. So I spent a lot of time doing that. That was something that was started as a passion. I love to fish. And God has granted me the space to kind of monetize my passion in that regards. And um, as always, being a ordained minister, I find great pleasure in ministering. So there's where I am these days. You can find me on, I mean, I was about to say Amazon. Good God Almighty, maybe that's next. uh, Instagram, Facebook, all those things using, by my name, and then you can venture off into my businesses. Fish for Real Charters, is the fishing business, and DreamWorks Realty is the real estate business. And thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. And Anthony, where's your church at, man?
Oh, I'm at the Connecting Place. The Connecting Place at Greater Salem, Bishop Allen G. Porter. I serve with Elder Barry on the pastoral team, and I serve with
Okay.
Jamiyo on the court team. So, yeah, we at the Connecting Place.
All right, man. We're glad to have you guys on the show. And to our listeners, this concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your host, Barry J. Elliott, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, Bo Powell. Don't forget to check us out at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media. Look, we're on a mission. We want to bring light and life into your household, so join us and let us hear your feedback because it's all about bringing life to you on The Lifeline. Y'all take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.